Most of us have this built-in idea of what science is for, right? It's here to make our lives better, safer, more comfortable. But what if that entire idea is just plain wrong? Today, let's dive into a radical, powerful challenge to that whole assumption, straight from the mind of Friedrich Nietzsche. So let me ask you this, and really think about it for a second. What if our constant, relentless drive to get rid of pain, to solve every little problem, was actually leading us down a path to becoming, well, something less than human? It's a pretty shocking idea, so let's unpack it. Okay, so before we get into Nietzsche's bombshell, let's just lay out the conventional wisdom. The goal of science, as pretty much everyone understands it, is actually pretty straightforward. It's like a utilitarian dream. And here's what that dream looks like. The whole idea is that science should be working to maximize our pleasure and minimize what Nietzsche called our displeasure. It's all about solving problems, creating comfort, and just making life as safe and easy as humanly possible. And on the surface, that sounds perfectly logical. Who's going to argue with that? Well, it turns out one person did argue with it, and he argued with it forcefully. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche saw this whole quest for comfort not as progress, but as a deep, profound betrayal of what humanity could actually become, a betrayal of our potential for greatness. And this right here is the absolute heart of his argument. Nietzsche is basically saying that a science that is dedicated only to making us comfortable actually promotes a kind of mediocre, shrunken version of humanity. He argues that when you try to eliminate all the pain, you accidentally get rid of your capacity for true greatness at the same time. But why? How does that work? Well, to really get his point, you have to understand how Nietzsche looked at two of our most fundamental experiences, pleasure and pain. He saw them in a way that, well, most of us just don't. Okay, so here's the crucial point, and it comes from aphorism 12 of his work, The Gay Science. He says that pleasure and pain, they aren't opposites. For Nietzsche, they're like inseparable twins that grow from the very same root. You just can't have one without the other. They're just two ends of a single spectrum of feeling. Think of it like this. If you want to experience those incredible, sky-high peaks of joy, you must also have the capacity to endure the absolute lowest depths of sorrow. The two are they're inextricably linked. So if you try to flatten out the lows to make life more comfortable, you are automatically lowering the ceiling on how high the highs can be. And this deep connection between pleasure and pain, it presents all of humanity with a fundamental choice. We have to pick between two very, very different ways of existing. So here are the two paths. You've got the path of comfort. This one's all about diminishing pain. It leads to a life that's safe, it's predictable, and you get a nice, moderate level of contentment. But Nietzsche saw this as a common existence. Then you have the alternative, the path of greatness. This path aims to increase our capacity for pleasure. But, and this is the big but, it demands that you courageously accept what he called prodigious suffering. It's a noble and dangerous life that thrives on the tension between these extreme opposites. When Nietzsche looked around at his own time, he was convinced that society had overwhelmingly chosen that first path, the path of comfort. He slammed his contemporaries for trying to turn the entire world into this giant hospital, a place totally obsessed with safety and with soothing every single ache and pain the second it appears. So what was his preferred alternative? It was to develop a heroic disposition, a mindset that rejects the safe, comfortable valley for the dangerous heights of the mountains. It's about a life that finds joy not in the absence of struggle, but right in the very heart of it. All right, so if science isn't supposed to just be a tool for making our lives cushy and convenient, then what in the world is it for? Well, Nietzsche had a vision for what he called a gay science, which really means a science of joy and affirmation. And this gay science has a totally different to-do list. First, it has to stop treating suffering like it's some kind of mistake that needs to be fixed. Instead, its goal should be to give us the strength to affirm the tragic parts of life. From there, it's supposed to help us cultivate that heroic disposition and ultimately expand our spirit's capacity to embrace all of existence, the good, the bad, the joy, and the pain. This all leads to a really profound and honestly a pretty challenging conclusion. For Nietzsche, the constant pursuit of a painless life is, at the end of the day, the pursuit of a meaningless one. Why? Because it severs our connection to the very energies that make our existence potent and worthwhile in the first place. Now, the philosophical foundation that holds this entire worldview together is a concept he called amor fati. It's Latin for love of one's fate. And it's this radical idea of not just accepting, but actually loving everything that happens to you, the wins, the losses, the joy, and especially the suffering, seeing it all as an essential part of a powerful and complete life. And so that brings us right back to where we started, with a question that's really for you, for all of us. What is it that we truly want from our lives and from our science? Do we want a safe, predictable, but ultimately shriveled happiness? Or do we want a grand, magnanimous existence that embraces everything, even the pain, all for the sake of greatness? That's the challenge Nietzsche leaves for us to ponder.